Imagine waking during the night to the sound of someone crying outside your home. It is not an ordinary crying. It rises and falls between a mournful wail and a piercing scream. You look outside, but nobody is there. Then a short time later, news arrives that a member of your family has died. For generations in Ireland, people believed that this cry belonged to the Banshee. But the creature presented in modern horror stories is not quite the Banshee that Irish people once knew. She was not believed to hunt people or cause their deaths. She came because death had already chosen someone. The word Banshee comes from the Irish Banshee, meaning woman of the fairy mound. The she, or the supernatural people, believed to inhabit Ireland's ancient mounds, forts, and other hidden places. The Banshee belonged to that mysterious other world, but her connection with human families made her different. Tradition held that she followed particular Irish families across generations. When one of their members was approaching death, she began to mourn. Her cry was often described as keening. Keening was once part of Irish funeral tradition. Women known as Mná Concha performed a vocal lament over the dead, expressing the grief of the family and community. The Banshee seemed to perform a supernatural version of that same duty. She was the unseen woman mourning a death before the human mourners had even gathered. Descriptions of her appearance varied greatly from place to place. In some stories, she was a beautiful young woman with long flowing hair. In others, she appeared as a pale, grieving mother. Elsewhere, she was described as an old woman, bent with age and wrapped in a cloak. She might be dressed in white, grey, or dark clothing. Sometimes she was seen sitting on a wall beneath a tree or beside a stream combing her hair. These differences are important because the Banshee was never one single fixed character. She belonged to oral tradition. Every district, and sometimes every family, had its own version. Some believed that only the person marked for death could hear her. Others said that the family heard the cry while the dying person heard nothing. There were also accounts of the Banshee being heard far away from the person who was dying. Her cry could therefore carry the news home before any letter, messenger, or telephone call arrived. The Schools collection, gathered from Irish school children and their families during the 1930s, preserves hundreds of Banshee traditions. One account from County Wexford tells of patients hearing strange wailing around a hospital on the night a man named Bartholomew Burke died. Another tradition from County Cork says the Banshee followed certain local families and remained keening for several nights. These stories were not presented as distant medieval legends. They were frequently told as events that had happened to a parent, neighbour, or named person in the district. One of the strangest traditions concerned the Banshee's comb. People were warned never to pick up a comb found beside a road, wall, or window. The Banshee was often seen combing her long hair, and the abandoned object might belong to her. Stories collected in different counties describe people taking the comb home, only for the Banshee to arrive that night, crying outside and demanding its return. The frightened owner would consult a priest or an older neighbour. They were then advised to return the comb using a shovel, long tongs, or another metal object. Why? Because if they offered it with their bare hand, the Banshee might seize them or tear the hand away with the comb. The recurring story reveals something important about Irish folklore. It taught people not to interfere with the objects belonging to the other world. Leave them where they are, show respect, and continue on your journey. So, did Irish people genuinely believe in the Banshee? For many, the answer was yes. Others may have told the stories because they were part of family and local tradition. And some strange cries probably had natural explanations. Foxes can produce frightening, almost human screams. Birds, wind, and animals heard in darkness could easily become something supernatural. But that does not fully explain why stories of the Banshee endured for so long. The belief gave a recognizable form to something every family feared: unexpected news of death. In a time when relatives often lived far apart and communication travelled slowly, the Banshee became the messenger who could cross any distance. She represented grief arriving before the news. That is why the traditional Banshee is more sorrowful than evil. Her cry was terrifying, but it was also a lament. She did not come to take a life. She came to mourn someone who was already leaving it. And even today, when a strange cry is heard outside an Irish house in the darkness, there are still people who remember the old warning. The Banshee may be mourning for someone. This is Ireland Remembered, where Ireland's history, folklore, and forgotten stories live again. Subscribe for more stories from Ireland's past. Thank you.